Okay, there we go. Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful time out there. We are back again with another SCP reading stream. Starting off with SCP 052. Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. Although it is not possible to remove SCP-052 from the New York City subway system, its predictable behavior allows the Foundation to prevent the public from encountering it. On 59th Street, A, B, C, and D station is to be closed to the public from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. on Saturdays or Sundays under the pretext of track maintenance. During that time, the station is to be staffed with agents from Mobile Task Force Gamma 6. Agents have been ordered to prevent accidental public access to the station and to capture anyone seen leaving SCP-052. Anyone who has been on 052 must be transported to Site-21 for debriefing and processing. Members of the public who see 052 may be released after the administration of a Class B amnestic. Description: 052 is a Type R4 New York City subway train. Official records indicate that this train was built in 1932 and decommissioned for scrap in 1975. Nevertheless, it continues to appear on the Uptown AD track at the 59th Street and 8th Avenue station at 11:57 p.m. every Saturday. The train is in perfect condition and labeled as an A train. SCP-052 appears at the designated time, opens its doors to accept or discharge passengers for approximately 5 minutes, then closes its doors and disappears. It does not appear to ever contain passengers except for those leaving the train during its appearance. The majority of subjects that have boarded SCP-052 have not been recovered. Passengers leaving SCP-052 claim to have boarded on various dates from 1976 up to 2204. The latter claims he thought SCP-052 was a 300th anniversary special train. Subjects retain no knowledge of time on board. Addendum: passengers leaving SCP-052 must be brought to Site-21 and interrogated to determine their origin and possible threat to the current time stream. Generally, passengers from the past may be given a Class A amnestic and reintegrated into society. Passengers from the future must be held indefinitely. See Order 69-A1 from 059. Site-21 currently holds 26 recovered passengers. Despite our protocols to prevent public access, we are still receiving subjects from the future. Although some are from alternate timelines, it is possible SCP-052 will begin to appear at another time or place, requiring expanded containment. The Foundation has placed several subjects onto the train in an attempt to understand its activities when not visible. Test 052-1 052-1, May 31st, 2009. Agent Blank placed on the train. Not recovered as of present date. Test 052-2, June 6, 2009. Agent Blank enters train. Not recovered as he apparently returned to 1980 and was killed in a confrontation with Redacted. Test 052-3. The notes on recovered passenger 052-4, or C notes on recovered passenger 052-4. After Test 052-3, O5 Command issued orders that no further agents should be risked as passengers on SCP-052. Consideration has been given to using Class D personnel in their place, but the risk of releasing them into the past is too great. Log of recovered passengers in Foundation custody. Passenger 052-1. Entered train on July 14, 2012. Recovered March 8, 2008. Notes: an accountant on the way home from the theater when she entered the train. 052-1 has expressed surprise and dismay to have traveled back in time 4 years, but appears to be otherwise unchanged and unharmed. She has been determined to currently exist in this timeline and must be held indefinitely to prevent unwanted temporal effects. Passenger 052-2. Entered train June 12th, 1976. Recovered March 15th, 2008. Notes. Subjects entered the train when lost on the way to Studio 54. Although unharmed and not a temporal threat, 052-2 is being held as the examining psychiatrist believes 32 years is too long a period over which to facilitate successful reintegration. Passenger 052-3. Entered train December 6, 2014. Recovered June 20th, 2009. Notes. A tourist from Jacksonville, Florida, subject 052-3 now speaks Albanian instead of English. Held due to O5 orders. Subject from the future, as well as possible reintegration difficulties. Passenger 052-4. Entered train June 13th, 2009. Recovered June 27th, 2009. Notes. Agents blank from test 052-3. Agent returned with his hands surgically removed and a note in his pocket with the message, "Send no more." Subject does not remember his experience on the train, but when subjected to hypnosis, he revealed data expunged. Passenger 052-5. Agent blank entered train at unknown future date in violation of protocol. On July 11th, 2009, body of subject was violently thrown from the train, landing 10 meters away. On examination, subject was found to have been data expunged. Whether security should be increased to prevent subject from entering SCP-052 is under consideration. Passenger 052-6. Blank claims to be a Level 4 supervisor from the SCP Foundation, who entered the train on December 21, 2024. Subject has been administered a Class A prime amnestic prior to boarding, in a successful attempt to avoid the fate of passengers 052-4 and 052-5. Recovered February 6, 2010, as he will never be released from Foundation custody. O5 Command has approved sharing otherwise classified information about other artifacts in our possession in hopes of gaining new methods of containment and becoming aware of future security breaches. Agent Blank has been cooperative and claims that it is good we do not know how to open SCP-699. Subject turned visibly pale and refused to discuss this item further. To be a survivor of the Great Zombie Plague of 2092, caused by an SCP-008 containment breach. That SCP blank can be killed by data expunged with a data expunged on SCP blank. Permission to try this has been denied by O5-blank, and that he worked for Dr. Jack Bright. That is the end of it. I think we have already seen the Dr. Jack Bright thing, so let's check. We have not, but this is a collection of tales, so if we come back to it later on, we can come back to it. Back to the page. Come on, back to the page. There we go. Alright, end of SCP-052. On to SCP-053. SCP-053, Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-053 is to be contained in an area no less than 5 meters by 5 meters, 16 feet by 16 feet, and given adequate room to move. Toys, books, games, and other recreational devices are to be amply provided and rotated every 3 months. Proper bedding, bathroom, and medical facilities are to be maintained at all times. Food should be provided 3 times daily, and 2 snacks are allowed if requested. No physical contact is to be made with 053 without full atmosphere containment suit and eye shield. No eye contact is to be made with SCP-053 for any reason. Any subjects given to personnel any objects given to personnel by SCP-053 may be removed, but must be given to quarantine for examination. Only one member of personnel may be present in the room at any given time and must be secured by a safety line of steel cable. All personnel must be removed from SCP-053's containment chamber within 10 minutes of entering. Any personnel who begin to act erratically, scream, or attempt to grab SCP-053 are to be removed and quarantined. Any personnel attempting to remove their suit are also to be removed and quarantined. No sharp objects or firearms are allowed in SCP-053's containment room. Description: SCP-053 appears to be a small 3-year-old girl. She is capable of basic speech and appears to be slightly above average in mental development. She has a generally pleasant personality and rarely seems upset, becoming agitated only in the presence of groups of people. Any and all humans over the age of 3 who make eye contact with, physically touch, or remain around SCP-053 for longer than 10 minutes will rapidly become irrational, paranoid, and homicidal. Most, if not all, of these feelings are directed at SCP-053, and afflicted subjects will attempt to kill SCP-053 after first killing or driving off all humans visible to them. Those attempting to kill SCP-053 will suffer massive heart attacks and seizures and die seconds after doing any physical damage to SCP-053. SCP-053 will regenerate almost instantaneously from any wound, regardless of severity. SCP-053 appears wholly ignorant of these effects and ignores any and all subjects affected. When questioned about effects, SCP-053 is incapable of response. Checking out the link for will rapidly become irrational, paranoid, and homicidal, we apparently have another SCP. This was not what I expected from that link. Yep, okay. I'm not quite sure how those link, but we'll find out when we get to it. Onwards to SCP-054. Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. Subject is held in a watertight isolation room outfitted with specialized climate control equipment. An ornate fountain filled with water stands in the center of the enclosure. Maintenance personnel are required to wear NBC suits while inside the containment area, and must spend 10 minutes in a special drying room after exiting. In the event of a breach, the surrounding area should be evacuated and the enclosure flushed with liquid nitrogen. The Foundation's chemical levels and volume are to be monitored and maintained. Spring water from blank must be used as SCP-054 is highly sensitive to hydrological conditions. SCP-054 has developed a mistrust for human males during its confinement. Thus, assignment of female personnel is recommended. Description: out of the water, the subject Out of the water, the subject most often appears as a female humanoid with a mean volume of 90 liters comprised entirely of water. Other forms are possible, commonly in geometric shapes. When it enters a body of water, it becomes indistinguishable from its surroundings. The subject must periodically return to a body of water in order to maintain its volume due to evaporation. Initially found in blank, it was moved to Site-08 for further study. Subject was initially curious about Foundation personnel and seemed to enjoy interacting with maintenance staff and researchers and mimicking their forms. After a number of weeks, the creature apparently felt comfortable enough to remain out of water during routine monitoring, though it retreated when attempts were made to study its composition. SCP-054 is apparently comprised of normal water, with no detectable differences compared to ordinary spring water from the same source. No thermal, electromagnetic, biological, or other phenomena has ever been detected in its body that would suggest how it animates. Water lost by SCP-054 due to evaporation exhibits no special properties when condensed. Experiments with 054 were halted following data expunged. 2 2 researchers injured. After this incident, containment protocols were updated. Subject thereafter exhibits signs of mistrust and aggression around male personnel, which made up the majority of the original research staff. Subject reclassified as Euclid. Partial transcripts. Audio Journal 054-A. Water loss experiment. Subject becomes withdrawn and inactive when denied access to water. Its compact shape is theorized to reduce surface area exposure. Subject becomes withdrawn and inactive when denied access to water. Its compact shape is theorized to reduce surface area exposed to evaporation. For the first few days, it moved eagerly to greet anyone entering its enclosure and behaved excitably. Possibly indicates an understanding by the subject that we control its access to water supplies. Subject ceased this behavior yesterday, presumably in recognition that no help was forthcoming. Temperature extremes testing. We were authorized to attempt sub-zero testing this morning. The subject became lethargic as the temperature fell and froze completely after blank. Spectroscopy of the ice crystal revealed no abnormalities. Ice chips were collected for study. This is in stark contrast to its behavior in the 95-degree test, when it became aggressive and attempted to escape its enclosure. We've submitted a work order to combine the climate control equipment with the subject's standard enclosure, as it has begun to resist efforts to transport it to experimental chambers with increasingly desperate behavior. Memory and conditioning evaluation. Subject has proven unexpectedly adept at navigating complex mazes and solving puzzles. Dr. Seskel has finally overcome the problem of motivating the subject by the application of electric shocks and/or silica desiccates. He joked that we would have it trained to fetch in no time, and after observing his methods, I think he might be right. Note: subject to be allowed a 48-hour recuperation period. It seemed to be lagging at the end of the week's experiment. Acid-base incorporation experiment. Last log entry. I am starting with a 0.5 mol HCl solution. I have no idea what will happen, but if this thing incorporates hemostatic mechanisms, like I suspect, then we should get some insight into how it maintains its form. Temperature in the enclosure has been lowered to 278 Kelvin to help control 54's increasingly erratic behavior. Addendum 054-B. After 5 years with no incidents, subject rating has been downgraded to safe on recommendation of Dr. Blank. Experiments will resume under the auspice of Biology Unit E7. Caution should still be exercised when interacting with the subject. And it is currently classified as safe. On to SCP-055. SCP-055 Object Class Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Object is kept within a 5 by 5 by 2.5 meter square room constructed of cement, 50 centimeter thickness, with a Faraday cage surrounding the cement walls. Access is via a heavy containment door measuring 2 by 2.5 meters. Constructed on bearings to ensure the door closes and locks automatically unless held open deliberately. Security guards are not to be posted outside SCP-055's room. It is further advised that all personnel maintaining or studying other SCP objects in the vicinity try to maintain a distance of at least 50 meters from the geometric center of the room, as long as this is reasonably practical. Description: SCP-055 is a self-keeping secret, or an anti-meme. Information about SCP-055's physical appearance, as well as its nature, behavior, and origins, is self-classifying. To clarify, how Site-19 originally acquired SCP-055 is unknown. When SCP-055 was obtained and by whom is unknown. SCP-055's physical appearance is unknown. It is not indescribable or invisible. Individuals are perfectly capable of entering SCP-055's container and observing it, taking mental or written notes, making sketches, taking photographs, or even making audio or video recordings. An extensive log of such observations is on file. However, information about SCP-055's physical appearance leaks out of a human mind soon after such an observation. Individuals tasked with describing SCP-055 afterwards find their minds wandering and lose interest on the task. Individuals tasked with sketching a copy of a photograph of SCP-055 are unable to remember what the photograph looks like, as are researchers overseeing the test. Security personnel who have observed SCP-055 via closed-circuit television cameras emerge after a full shift exhausted and effectively amnesic. I believe that's amnesic. About the events of the previous hours. Who authorized the construction of SCP-055's containment room, why it was constructed in this way, or what the purpose of the described containment procedures may be, are all unknown. Despite SCP-055's container being easily accessible, all personnel at Site-19 claim no knowledge of SCP-055's existence when challenged. All of these facts are periodically rediscovered, usually by chance readers of this file, causing a great deal of alarm. This state of concern lasts minutes at most, before the matter is simply forgotten about. A great deal of scientific data has been recorded from SCP-055, but cannot be studied. At least one attempt has been made to destroy SCP-055, or possibly remove it from containment at Site-19 to another site, meaning failure for unknown reasons. SCP-055 may present a major physical threat and indeed have killed many hundreds of personnel, and we would not know it. Certainly, it presents a gigantic memetic or mental threat, hence its Keter classification. I can words. Subject, 055-1, an analysis of SCP-055. The author puts forward the hypothesis that SCP-055 was never formally acquired by blank blank, and is in fact an autonomous or remotely controlled agent, inserted at Site-19 by an unidentified third party for one or all of the following purposes: to silently observe or interfere with Site-19 activities, to silently observe or interfere with activities at other SCP locations, to silently observe or interfere with activities of humanity worldwide, to silently observe or interfere with other SCP objects, to silently observe or interfere with blank. No action to counter any of those threats is suggested, or indeed theoretically possible, or is suggested, or indeed theoretically possible. Addendum A. Hey, if this thing really is an anti-meme, why doesn't the fact that it's an anti-meme get wiped? We must be wrong about that somehow. Wait a minute. What if we were to keep notes about what it isn't? We should remember those. Bartholomew Hughes, NSA. Document 055-2. Report of Dr. John Marchuk. I've come to a horrible realization that my filter was not on for the mic. Let me set that real quick. There we go. Hopefully there wasn't too much background noise up until now. Survey team, number 19-055-127-BXE, was successfully able to enter SCP-055's container and ascertain the appearance and to some degree the nature of the object. Notes were taken according to the project methodology, see blank, after which the container was sealed again. Excerpt from a transcript of personnel debriefing follows. Dr. Hughes. Okay. I'm going to need to ask you some questions about number 55 now. Blank. Number what? Dr. Hughes. SCP Object 55, the object you just examined. Blank. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think we have a 55. Dr. Hughes. Okay then. Blank. I'd like you to tell me what you've been doing for the past 2 hours. Blank. What? Subject appears uncomfortable. I don't know. Dr. Hughes. Okay then. Do you remember that we all agreed that it wasn't spherical? Blank. That what wasn't? Oh, right. It isn't round at all. Object 55 isn't round. Dr. Hughes. So you remember it now? Blank. Well, no. I mean, I don't know what it is, but I know there is one. It's something you can't remember, and it's not a sphere. Dr. Hughes. Wait a minute. What's not a sphere? Blank. Object 55. Dr. Hughes. Object what? Blank. Doc, do you remember agreeing that something wasn't shaped like a sphere? Dr. Hughes. Oh, right. It appears to be possible to remember what SCP-055 is not, negation of fact, and to repeatedly deduce its existence from these memories. Personnel involved in Survey 19-055-127BXE reported moderate levels of disorientation and psychological trauma associated with cycles of repeating memory and forgetfulness of SCP-055. However, no long-term behavioral or health problems were observed, and psych assessments of survey personnel showed consistent reports of this distress fading over time. Recommendations. It may be worthwhile to post at least one staff member capable of remembering the existence of SCP-055 to each critical site. Next, we need to talk about 55, so we'll take a quick look at that. Yeah, we can read through this. Can I smoke? This time, the receptionist narrows her eyes at Marion. Oh, sorry, it's a female. Can I smoke? This time, the receptionist narrows her eyes at Marion. No, she says. No. You can't smoke anywhere on Site 200. Just because it's an administration building doesn't mean we don't have lungs or labor law. Marion notices the exasperation on the young woman's face. I've asked you that before, haven't I? Twice in the last quarter hour, the receptionist says. You must really need a smoke. She's genuinely puzzled at the repeated question, and she's doing a bad job of concealing her puzzlement. You think this is like Memento, don't you? Marion offers charitably. You think I have no long-term memory, and if I stay in one place for too long, I forget why I'm there. The receptionist is only just old enough to remember that film. I guess? Marion smiles sympathetically and shakes her head. It's nothing so simple. Minutes pass. She toys obsessively with her lighter. She is turning 50 this year and slowly graying, well on her way out of petite and towards little old lady. In her bag, her phone beeps because it's time for a pill, but she tells it to remind her later. There's a slight trembling in her fingers, but that's not age-based infirmity. That's just ordinary nerves. She's nervous because she's here to meet an O5, and O5s are scary. O5s never want to see you for a small thing. It's the end of the world or nothing. Finally, 40 minutes late, the door to the inner office opens. 4 of 5 high-ranked Foundationers spill out, carrying laptops and briefcases. As a group, they head straight past the reception and out to cars which are waiting. Marion recognizes a few of the faces. The Site 19 site director, the head recruiter for Western Europe. None of them glance in her direction. Once they're gone, O5-8 assistants... 05-8's assistant pokes his head around the door. He's 20-something, improbably youthful, like a teenager stuffing into one of his dad's business suits. Stuffed into. His haircut is barely regulation. In one hand, he holds a tablet computer showing his boss's day planner. It's packed. The man evidently does not sleep. Marion, you can come in now. Oh, sorry, youthful. Marion, you can come in now. The office door closes behind them, with an unusually heavy mechanical click, as if the whole thing is part of a machine built into the office walls. While Marion takes the indicated chair and sets her bag down, the assistant turns and does some confusing additional things to the door, causing it to make several further strange noises. O5s have non-trivial privacy and security requirements. The office is spacious, but somehow contrives to be dark, despite two big corners of a window and broad daylight outside. The walls are all bookshelves and dark wood paneling. Perfectly stylish, but a style from the 90s, a little worn and yet not old enough to be fashionable again. As for the fellow behind the desk, well, an O5 never looks like you imagine. Marion takes a deep breath. So what's the topic? All I got was the meeting invitation, no agenda or subject. I mean, an O5 says jump, you jump, but... She looks to her right. She notices the assistant, without saying anything or making any undue noise, has set his tablet down on a table, produced a gun and aimed it at her head. Marion stops talking. She sits still in her chair for a little while, absorbing the change of pace, letting her heart rate rise to a hummingbird's and then start to flatten again. Okay? She hazards. She licks her lips and grips the armrests, otherwise staying perfectly still, waiting for another prompt. The assistant's face is totally neutral now. Like this is just how meetings go. Maybe it is for people up here. Who are you? O5-8 asks her. Marion blinks. What? Oh, God. Let me rephrase, O5-8 says. Marion Wheeler, 49, with loving husband and 2 boys in tow. Likes camping, hiking, and ornithology. Boring mother with perfect airtight background and financials as far back as you could imagine. Or as we can examine. And you've got full foundation credentials that we've never issued, including access to a list of installations and rooms which some of these locations don't exist, or were torn down decades ago. At least one hasn't been built yet. Yet you've got the front door key to it. That's before we get to your SCP access controls list, which I can only term as egregious. So you're a spy, and your objectives are misaligned with ours, and Clay wanted to cut XI3 loose on you. But I was able to bring him round. I talked him into a face-to-face. I thought there was a slim chance that if we locked you in a bomb-proof room and asked you politely, you'd have the good sense to spare yourself the rest. Marion, has long since stopped listening. You dullard, she says, now she can finally speak. I'm your chief of anti-memetics. We don't have an anti-memetics division, Clay says. Yes, you do. We do. O5-8 says, we have a memetics division, a telecontainment division, fire services, ops A, B, personnel, D personnel, and 24 others. We don't have an anti-memetics division. Do we have an irony division? Marion asks. She hesitates hopefully. No? Alright. Well, try this. Why do you think the anti-memetics division would show up in the listing. This is just a cover story. This is just a cover story, Clay says to 05-8, not taking his eyes off Marion. It's a good one, but she's had it worked out in advance. Clay, lose the piece, says 05. Grudgingly, Clay does so. Marion relaxes fractionally. There are SCPs with dangerous mimetic properties, she says. There are contagious concepts that require containment just like any physical threat. They get inside your head and ride your mind to reach other minds, right? Right. 05-8 says. He could name a score of SCPs fitting that description without even thinking. There are SCPs with anti-mimetic properties, Marion goes on. There are ideas which cannot be spread. There are entities and phenomena which harvest and consume information, particularly information about themselves. You take a Polaroid photo of one, it'll never develop. You write a description down with a pen on paper and hand it to someone. But what you've written turns out to be hieroglyphs, and nobody can understand them, not even you. You can look directly at one, and it won't even be invisible, but you'll still perceive nothing there. Dreams you can't hold on to, and secrets you can never share, and lies, and living conspiracies. There's a conceptual subculture of ideas consuming other ideas, and sometimes segments of reality, sometimes people. Which makes them a threat. That's all there is to it, really. Anti-memes are dangerous, and we don't understand them. Therefore, they are a part of the problem. Hence my division. We can do the sideways thinking that's needed to combat something which can literally eat your combat training. 05-8 stares back at her for a long moment. Clay fidgets, disliking and distrusting the story, but the 05 seems more open to the concept. Name one, he says. Name an anti-mimetic SCP. SCP-055, Marion says promptly. There is no SCP-055, Clay retorts. Again, yes, there is, Marion says. There isn't, Clay asserts. SCP numbers aren't assigned sequentially. There are gaps. That number hasn't been assigned. It's not superstition. We have enough to be concerned about without arbitrary numerological mysticism. We have SCP-666 and SCP-013, but there's no SCP-001 and there's no SCP-055. Clay, 05-8 says, you should look at this. He turns his monitor to Clay so Clay can see the file that he has just retrieved. Clay bends over and reads it from top to bottom. Stunned, he scrolls back and reads it all a second time. But the file's dated from 2008, 05-8 says. It's got all the right flags and signatures. It's keyed and coded. It's real. You've seen this before? Clay asks him. Never in my life, 05-8 says. As far as I can remember, anyway. On the other hand, if the content is accurate, both of us have probably seen it dozens of times. Clay glares at Marion. This isn't possible. Marion nearly spits. For Christ's sake, Clay! How long have you been working here? But if this SCP is this powerful, he begins. Yes? Who wrote the file? The 05 finishes. And for that matter, how was the interview conducted, and who is Bartholomew Hughes? And most importantly, how do you, Miss Wheeler, have knowledge of any of this? Bart Hughes wrote the file. He's dead, Marion says. What happened to him? You don't want to know. There is a very long pause while both 05-8 and his assistant react to this. In fact, they pass through a long discrete sequence of reactions. Indignation at the seeming rudeness, confusion about Wheeler's incaution in front of sinister superiors, surprise at the magnitude of the calm, pure disbelief, comprehension, and finally horror. What? Sorry. What? 05-8 asks carefully. What would happen if we did know? It would happen to you as well, Marion says levelly. As for the rest of your questions, we manage that pharmaceutically. You know we have Class A amnestics for people who very badly need to forget things. Of course you do. Who could forget about Class A amnestics? Well, in antimemetics, we have a different pill for people who need to remember things that would otherwise be impossible to remember. Mnestics. Class W, X, Y, and Z. Same Greek root as the word mnemonic. Oh. Mnemonic. The M is silent. In her bag, her phone beeps. With a nod of approval from with a nod of approval from the 05, Marion reaches into her bag and turns off her phone, acknowledging the prompt this time instead of postponing it. She pulls a blister pack from another pocket and pops a pill out. It's hexagonal and green. She holds it up and is satisfied to see a flicker of recognition from 05-8's face. He's beginning to put it back together. Marion says, "These are Class W mnestics. Class W nestics. The weakest suitable for continual use. 2 pills per day. Go down to the site pharmacy and ask. The pharmacist will claim they don't stock such a thing. They're misremembering. Tell them to double check." 05-8 sighs. And now I think I get it. I see why we're having this conversation at all. Yes, Marion says, popping a second pill out and handing it over to him. Because you missed a dose. You're supposed to be on these, the same as me and everybody on my staff. It's the only way we can work. You forgot to take a pill, and then you forgot all the information that the pills are helping you retain. You forgot why you were taking them, who gave them to you, and where to get more. You forgot about me and my entire department, and now I have to bring you up to speed. And if I take this, 05-8 says, I'll remember this whole conversation and we won't have to have it again. Hopefully not, Mariam says. Clay pipes up. Should I be taking those? Sorry, kiddo, 05-8 says. Need to know. Maybe when you're an 05 yourself. He swallows the pill. Marion swallows hers too. So what is SCP-055? 05-8 asks. SCP-055 is nothing, Marion says, now relaxing entirely. SCP-055 is, as described in the file, a powerful inflammation autosuppressor. As far as experimentation has uncovered, it can only be identified in negative terms. We can only record what it isn't. We know it isn't safe or Euclid. We know it isn't round or square, or green or silver. We know it isn't stupid. And we know it isn't alone. But what we do know is that it's weak. It's weak because it's the only antimemetic agent in our possession which has a physical entry in the files. We have paper records of the thing. We have containment procedures. It's not safe, which means it's dangerous, but it's contained. 05-8 blinks. We have procedures? Where? Marion points at her head. Then how many other anti-memes are there? And how dangerous do they get? 10 that I know, Marion says. Statistically, probably at least 5 more that I don't know. This does not count the antimemetic entities freely roaming the halls not under containment. We have at least 2 in this room with us right now. Don't look. I said don't look. It's pointless. 05-8 does an impressive job of controlling himself, keeping his attention focused on Marion. Clay doesn't fare so well and quickly sweeps the room, even checking behind his back, making an ass of himself, essentially. He finds nothing, and he looks baffled. There's an invisible monster which follows me around and likes to eat my memories, Marion explains patiently. SCP-4987. Don't look it up, it's not there. I've learned to manage it with it. It's like a demanding pet. Once I produce tasty memories on purpose so it doesn't eat something important, like my passwords or how to make coffee. And what's the other one? Clay asks. With another nod from 05-8, Marion goes to her bag again. This time, she pulls out a gun and shoots Clay twice in the heart. More aghast than in pain, Clay collapses sharply against the bookcase behind him. Pulling his head around to face Marion, he manages, "How did you Marion stands, aims more carefully, and shoots him a third time, this time in the head. 05, again, does an impressive job of not reacting. "That's Clay's gun," he deadpans. "You stole it from him." "It's tricky to steal a firearm this heavy from someone without them noticing," Marion explains, unloading it and carefully setting it down. "But stealing a firearm and then stealing their memory of the theft is a little easier. Like I said, a pet. Some pets are dumb enough that they can be trained." "Yes," 05-8 says evenly. "I guess that much I'd guessed." "But why?" "Because you're supposed to be taking Class W mnestics," Marion says. "You can't skip a dose of Class W mnestics. I've tried. You can postpone a dose, but you can't forget unless someone actively prevents you from taking it. There's only one person who could get close enough to you to do that, and that's your assistant. And I remember when I asked him how long he'd been working here?" "He didn't answer," 05-8 says. "I thought you were being rhetorical." "He doesn't work here," Marion says. "He's an anti-meme. Since when do you have an assistant?" "You don't have an assistant, Brent. Look at this office. It's got one desk. You've got a receptionist outside. She's the one who screens your calls and schedules your meeting. Where does Clay even sit? Where does he fit? Don't blame yourself. You're human. And these things are redaction incarnate. You need to think like a space alien to get them." 05 asks a question which, in any other workplace, would be absurd. "Is he dead?" "Maybe," Marion says. "I can put his corpse in our research queue and we'll see what we can see when we open him up. There's duality here, though. They're like parallel universes sharing the same space. It's conceptual versus concrete, figurative versus physical. It's very unusual for things to cross over. I don't know what Clay was, but he had a human body, which makes him weird, even by our standards. As ever, the search for stalemate continues. I will let you know if we get any closer." "Any side effects of these pills?" 05-8 asks. "Nausea and dramatic risk of pancreatic cancer," Marion says, "and very bad dreams." And that is the end of the short tale. We need to talk about 55. Now we head back to the next SCP in our list, SCP-056, Object Class Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-056 is to be kept in a room of its choosing, with whatever furnishings it expresses desire for. Level 1 personnel and above may interact with SCP-056 at any time they choose, for a length of time not exceeding 2 hours. The subject is to be guarded by a minimum of 3 security staff at all times, with shift changes every 4 hours. Each guard is to be armed with non-lethal tranquilizer pistols, loaded with no less than 1,500 microliters of cyclophelphorine tranquilizer. I've definitely got that wrong. Any irregularities in personnel and staff developed by exposure to SCP-056 will result in psychological examination and relocation to site data expunged. The subject is allowed access to any object it desires, with the exception of weapons, communication devices, an internet connection, and other SCP objects. It may wander in research sector blank as it wills, but never allowed access to floors with exits. In the event of an emergency, or if SCP-056 becomes violent, it is to be subdued and contained within its room if possible. At no time should personnel attempt to harm SCP-056. See Addendum 2-B. Description: SCP-056 is a being of variable size, gender, and appearance, which changes in response to the environment around it, especially in regards to living and sentient beings. Its most common form is of a handsome man in his middle 20s, dressed in garb of similar appearance to that of the personnel guarding it, but of a higher quality and aesthetic value. However, it has been recorded as taking these forms. A large, well-groomed Labrador Retriever, when exposed to Dr. Blank Blank's dog. A woman of similar appearance to famous actress Scarlett Johansson when passing by a group of younger female staff. A female doctor in a white lab coat when speaking with various researchers. When asked to take an IQ test, the subject scored nearly 30 points higher than the highest scoring researcher available. A male bodybuilder who was able to lift nearly 250 kilograms twice on a bench press in the sector's gym. This is 30 kilograms heavier than the strongest security guard's maximum at the time. A couch of extremely pleasing aesthetic value when left alone in the subject's room. These changes will generally occur the moment all people in the area lose focus on the subject, which occurs immediately upon exposure to a new object or person. See Addendum 3. Filming these changes has proved inconsequential, as any viewing the tapes or feeds suffer from the same momentary confusion. Clothing will also change during this time, though 056 has not yet manifested any sort of tools or weapons. It is theoretically impossible to view SCP-056's original or natural form when left in an empty concrete cell under closed-loop video surveillance. It took the form of a higher quality camera and appeared to monitor the camera watching it. Further attempts to yield its natural form discovered that, when alone, it had no readable life signs, including body temperature, heat, or weight. It is assumed by researchers that it could not exist without any sort of perception. Personnel in contact with the subject often report feeling jealous or unsatisfied, yet will often give a great deal of both positive and negative attention to SCP-056, which can be predicted by their personality types. Security staff will often claim that they wish to follow subjects' commands, even if they dislike it or its current form, while researchers in extended contact with it will often try to argue or verbally abuse it, which usually results in the subject sending them out in shame. SCP-056 is quite capable of speech and can apparently communicate in any language, verbal or not, and has shown fluency in over 200 dialects, including those invented by cryptographers and hobbyists. It frequently treats staff around it with disdain, though is generally willing to do whatever is asked of it, so long as the inquiring does so in a submissive way. It expresses interest in magazines, fashion, automobiles, theoretical science, sports, and magnitudes of other subjects, usually expressing greater knowledge and understanding of the topic than the person communicating with it. Personnel will generally become angry, disenchanted, or disgusted with SCP-056 after speaking to it for a great length of time, though they will try to speak with it again if possible. When questioned about other SCPs, it showed fear and occasionally hatred and refused to speak about any of them, even objects classified as safe. Additional. Subject was found to be working for a clothing design company, redacted, after an unusual number of homicides, suicides, and mental breakdowns of other models when working around SCP-056. When Class E personnel attempted to detain it, their mannerisms provoked it to change into what appeared to be the form of data expunged, resulting in the deaths of 17 agents and 10 civilians. The incident was covered up by claiming an employee was suffering from psychopathy, brought a firearm to work, and attacked other workers. Addendum 1. Those with level 4 or above clearance refer to document number 956-0. Document 956-0. Audio recording of the first encounter with SCP-056. Begin tape. Agent. Hey, listen up, whatever you are. You're under arrest for murder. SCP-056. No, go away. Clicking noises. Agent has drawn his weapon. Agent. You need to come with us right now. 056. You don't want to do that, you stupid little man. Expressions of surprise, presumably from onlookers. Agent blank. The fuck? It looks just like data expunged. Gunshots and screaming. Tape ends. Addendum 2-A. See document number 956-1. Document 956-1. Behavioral testing for SCP-056. Testing procedures. Data expunged. Addendum 2-B. Results. 1 male Class D personnel armed with knife intent to harm subject. Subject appeared as a lean, fit man of approximately 20 years of age. Subject proceeded to disarm and kill personnel. 1 female Class D personnel bearing a bottle of fine wine intent to object suffer gift. Subject appeared as a beautiful woman, accepted the gift, and upon tasting, spit it back at the person's face before waving her away. 2 D-class personnel, both male and female, carrying nothing and intending nothing. Subject appeared as a beautiful woman in a well-tailored business suit, examining both personnel, then dismissed them. 10 Class D personnel, all male, intending and carrying nothing. Subject appeared as a beautiful woman dressed in a low-cut red dress. After approximately 10 minutes, all personnel began showing signs of irritation and 5 minutes later broke out in fighting. Subjects waved them away after watching them for 7 minutes. 1 female Level 4 personnel, voted to be the best-looking woman in the facility. Carried nothing, intended nothing. Subject appeared as an extremely aesthetically pleasing woman, and displayed a large lexicon and understanding of management skills. Spoke to personnel for nearly 90 minutes, until personnel became infuriated and left the room. Addendum 3. Note from Dr. Kenneth. I was recently informed that 056 has repeatedly requested the access to the internet. When I asked 056 about this, it told me that we were unable to provide it with enough sycophants, and that it wanted the whole world to know its face. Needless to say, the request was denied. End of SCP. Next is SCP-057, or SCP-057. Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. Site-57 has been constructed to facilitate SCP-057 as relocation is not feasible. It is highly improbable that any outside knowledge of the artifact exists based on the circumstances of its discovery, and thus security is of minimal concern. No containment procedures are required other than the prevention of unauthorized access. All research will be delegated to Dr. Lewis and Dr. Woolston unless further specified. Due to the irretrievability of those placed inside SCP-057, access will be granted with the approval of no fewer than 2 members of O5. Description. SCP-057 is a subterranean chamber with an approximate cylindrical height of 3 meters and a diameter of 18 meters. Artifact is comprised of an impenetrable slate-colored stone. Inside the chamber are dozens of parallel piped monoliths extending from floor to ceiling that slide in various directions while SCP-057 is active. It was discovered several meters below blank on blank 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 during the construction of a secure containment enclosure for SCP blank. Consequently, SCP blank was assigned an alternate location at site blank. An entrance to the chamber is located in the northeastern side. When a human enters, the door shuts and the walls of the chamber begin to move in a way and the walls inside the chamber move in such a way as to require the subject's constant attention to maintain a safe course through the artifact. The monoliths slowly open and close until the subject either surrenders or exhausts themselves, at which time SCP-057 crushes them and reverts to original inactive state after a period of approximately 20 seconds. This process lasts only as long as the subject inside SCP-057 is alive and has proven to take days. Extended testing proposals to gauge the limits of the artifact have been discouraged. All tests on animals, machines, and cadavers have proven futile. Only a living, breathing human is able to initiate the process upon entering SCP-057. Incident Report Log 057-1. During the Excavation of the artifact. A worker employed by the Foundation for the unearthing process entered the chamber without receiving permission at roughly 12:57 a.m. on blank blank blank. Upon entering the artifact, the door shut and a dull rumble began to emanate from the chamber. Standard lockdown procedure was initiated, and all personnel in the vicinity were evacuated. A remote-operated vehicle (ROV) was deployed in order to safely determine the cause of this event and to gauge any possible threat of SCP-057. Aside from the rumbling noises produced during the event, no anomalous effects outside of the artifact were observed. At 4:32 a.m. of the following day, SCP-057 suddenly shut down and returned to its original state as the door shifted back into its open position. At 5:32 a.m., the area was declared safe and its original state as the door shifted back into its open position. At 5:32 a.m., I reread something. At 5:32 a.m., the area was declared safe and the excavation process was completed without further incident. The worker in question was never recovered. Experiment log 057-1. A controlled experiment for the purposes of exploring the interior of SCP-057 was requested by Dr. Lewis and Wollstone on blank 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 and approved shortly thereafter by O5 Council. D-1021 was equipped with a radio able to send and receive transmissions to and from the doctors. Upon entering the chamber, the artifact behaved as expected, with the door abruptly shutting behind D-1021. The following is a transcript of the communication between Dr. Lewis and Dr. Wollstone and D-1021. D-1021. Hey, you didn't tell me the door would close. Can you open it again? This place gives me the heebie-jeebies. Dr. Lewis. Negative. Please proceed as advised and describe your surroundings. D-1021. Okay, well, there are a bunch of stone columns here, and they keep rearranging their positions. Dr. Wollstone. D-1021, what's your status? D-1021. Damn columns snuck up on me. They're moving around, arranging themselves so they... Dr. Wollstone. What is it? D-1021. The columns behind me are closing up. The ones ahead of me are spreading out. I don't like this. Shh. I can't see the door anymore. Dr. Lewis. Stay calm. Move with the columns and you'll be fine. D-1021. If I stand still, they'll crush me. I have to keep moving or they'll crush me. How long am I going to be in here? Dr. Wollstone. It'll be over soon. You're doing fine. Just keep moving. D-1021. But what if I'm trapped in here? D-1021 begins to hyperventilate. I'm trapped. They're going to crush me and... Dr. Lewis. D1... Hey, listen. Get a hold of yourself. The columns will eventually lead you to an exit. Please relax and continue. D-1021. So there's an exit? Thank God! I was scared there for a second. I'd never... Superfluous... Extra dialogue is expunged. Dr. Wollstone. Yeah. Keep it up and you'll be right as rain. You're doing a great job. You'll have no trouble making parole once this is over. The experiment continues without incident for another 41 minutes. At this point, D-1021 becomes noticeably distressed again. I saw how big this place is from the outside. Am I going in a circle? Dr. Lewis. Negative. Continue to proceed through the opening columns. You should find an exit. D-1021. There's no fucking exit. You bastards, son of bitches, trapped me in here and now I'm fucking trapped. Subject begins to hyperventilate again. Dr. Wollstone. You are not trapped, D-1021. Continue to the exit or you'll be forced to... D-1021. Forced to what? There's nothing you can do to me. I'm gonna fucking die. I'm gonna die. Dr. Lewis. D-1021. Panicking will only exacerbate your situation. Focus. D-1021 breaks into tears. He continues to cry for the next 2 hours as he makes his way through the columns and does not reply to any questions. Eventually, the crying ceases. D-1021. So this is it. I'm gonna die. I guess I'll stop and close my eyes. Maybe it won't be so bad. I can't. D1021 continues to repeat this for several minutes. Eventually, he trails off and falls silent. Dr. Walston. D121? D1021 stops in his tracks, breathing slowly but heavily. Faint sobbing is audible. Dr. Walston. D121, or D1021, proceed through the room as advised. D1021. D1021's gentle sobbing abruptly cuts off. Brief, loud cracking and snapping sounds are heard before the transmission is lost. Strangely, D1021 does not report any sightings of the remains of the excavated worker lost in Event 057-1. Accordingly, no efforts were made for the recovery of D1021's remains. As a result of this inconclusive data, reclassification of SCP-057 to Euclid is pending. And that's where we're going to cut it off for today. Thank you everyone very much for coming. Don't believe we had anyone show up in chat, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone passed by the stream while I wasn't looking. For those of you on YouTube, if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. I should be releasing this roughly every other day, more SCP readings. But for now, thank you very much for coming. I hope you have a wonderful time out there, and I hope to see you again in the future. Au revoir.